Right? This week on the latest episode of The Big Show, it's the final weekend in August, and this week's horror has returned, and his name is Candyman. Look at Wilson's shirt. Also, Flag Day, Vacation Friends, and Really Love are all new this weekend. Plus, we'll remember Charlie Watts, discuss Leticia Wright's hospitalization, and we'll also talk about this year's nominees for the Radio Hall of Fame. We'll have all that and more on episode 469 of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, and welcome to the latest episode of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. I, the birthday man, am Tim Gordon. I am joined by my partner, riding shotgun, Charles Kirkland Jr.
Good. Well, I don't know if it's morning or evening where you're watching this, but I'm glad to be here. Oh, man, don't say your name.
A simple hello will suffice.
Hello. How you doing? Hey.
And we're also joined by BlackFilmAndTV.com's own Wilson Morales, the man who has a Candyman shirt and couldn't wait to put it on until today's show. How are you doing, Wilson?
The words we can't say because we are all superstitious, but it's good to be here.
Thank you. Well, we can't say it 5 times. You can't say it 5 times in a row, but you can say it once. So
depends on who you are. Sometimes. Go ahead. Anyway.
Well, it's funny. Before we move on, I was in the middle of watching a screener of it earlier this week, and I came downstairs, and we have a precocious 4-year-old in the house. And I guess, he's a parakeet. So he heard and he was like, "Oh, you watching Candyman?" And he kept saying, I was like, "Would you shut up? Stop it." Do not say Candyman 5 times, man. But so we have that. So coming up later in the show, we will discuss these 4 films. And among each of us, one of us at least has seen one of these films. But before we got to Wilson breaking down what's going on in entertainment this week, I wanted to remember Rolling Stone drummer who had been there. They've been 59 years, man. That group has had a core. Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Ronnie Wood, and the late now Charlie Watts, who passed away, I think, earlier this week. I'm not sure exactly if it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Huge loss for the Stones. They were just about to announce yet another world tour. I'm not sure if they're going to move forward with that or if they're going to take some time to try to figure out what it looks like for them going out. Because as I said, they've been going out as a group for 59 years. The Stones have been together as a complete unit. So rest in peace and rest in power to Charlie Watts. I know Wilson is not a big Rolling Stone guy. So I will look over at Charles to find out if Charles has any Charlie Watts thoughts before we move on.
Well, the Rolling Stones went on tour, their last tour, without Charlie because he was suffering some issues. And from what I heard, they're moving forward with their plans for their latest tour. But Charlie Watts may not have been the greatest drummer that you ever heard play, but he was consistent. And I mean, it's a long time that he's been in that band, and it's a loss. It's a big loss.
Got it. And also, I forgot to put on the call sheet, so this is more in Wilson's wheelhouse. On Wednesday, my birthday, was the 20th anniversary of Aaliyah's death. And I remember I was in New York. I was spending my birthday weekend in New York, and the news came across, and I was like, wow, man, because Aaliyah was right on the verge of about to exploding. She had gotten some roles. I know she had done, I can't even remember the vampire film that she had.
Queen of the Damned.
Thank you. So she had just gotten that, and I think Whitney Houston had her. They were doing at that time a Sparkle remake, and they had cast Aaliyah in the lead of that. Aaliyah was about to explode, and when her life tragically ended, people remembered her this week and remembered the 20th anniversary of that. Wilson Morales, 20 years ago, I know you were partying off of Aaliyah's songs. You were watching her rise, watching her film rise. Thoughts on the passing or the 20th anniversary of the passing of Aaliyah Houghton?
Well, before I talk about Aaliyah, I do remember Charlie Watts. I wouldn't say I know every song in the film, but anytime you have a member of a group that's as iconic as the Stones, you know, it's like the fact that, you know, they weren't like other bands when it kept switching over and over, like the Temptations and so forth, you know, the core group, that's its fame. It ain't just Mick Jagger, it's the whole core group. You know those names, those four. And, you know, obviously later on, for those who are millennials, is we got to see them and when they did, when Lisa Fisher was backing them up, you know, in that documentary that was famous about the backup singers. And then even more so when you saw the documentary of Aretha Franklin and how they showed up. I think it was, you know, you mostly saw Mick Jagger, but I'm assuming some of them were out there when Aretha did her gospel album, you know? So it's a tragic loss. And then you talk about Aaliyah. Yes, Aaliyah was, when you think about 20 years ago, there weren't that many Black actresses out there as there are now. And she was definitely on the rise. I think she had like a couple of films within that time frame that started to put her in that spotlight. She had a song, I remember that was like a hit, part of the Anastasia animation film that starred John Cusack and Meg Ryan. And so, yeah, so that was a tragedy that was still remembered, you know, 20 years later, you still, you know, and as we're getting into the whole R. Kelly thing, she's still in the picture, you know, she's still in the picture.
No, it's kind of interesting how you have Charlie Watts, who had a stellar career, and then you had Aaliyah, who was just coming into her career. You have both ends of the spectrum. We can only wonder what it would have been like for her to continue on, but she was gone too soon.
Yeah, man, it was such a bright light, man, because you know, it's you know, it's pretty sad, man. I mean, I think about her, I think about Robin Harris, you know, people who are literally right on the verge of exploding into something, and they are just taken away from us. Aaliyah and the Notorious B.I.G., I have surmised for years that had those two lived, I'm sure Jay-Z and Beyonce would still be special, but I just think that Aaliyah was in that space that Beyonce ended up being in. And the same thing for Jay-Z being in the space that Biggie was already occupying. So you can, you know, we have What If, which is the Marvel series now on Disney Plus. That's a wonderful what if to look at some of these lives and how they kind of intersperse with one another, and how when there's a void created by one, that somebody else has to step into it. So yeah, so that was the 20th anniversary of that, and people have been bumping Aaliyah and you know, talking about her on social media and hashtag we remember Aaliyah, etc. And now I want to move on to Latisha Wright, because I just went to see if there was a follow-up to her story, because earlier this week it was reported that while filming some scenes, I think it was in Boston. Am I correct, Wilson? It was in Boston for Black Panther, yes, for Wakanda Forever, that she suffered minor injuries after a stunt rig incident. So while they call it a minor injury, she's been hospitalized for a couple of days. So
I heard that she was out.
So she's out. That's what I was looking for right now.
Like, you know, it's sort of like, you know, I get we want to know these things, but it's sort of like, I think Deadline did an update within the day, within a short amount of time, saying, okay, she went to the hospital, she's checked out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's sort of like, let's not drag this as if she's on death's door.
Well, she's out, but they're saying that she's home recuperating. So it's not like she's back on the set working again. She's off, recuperating from whatever she was briefly hospitalized. Is that fair to say?
Right. It was only a couple hours that she was in the hospital. Okay, you know how hospitals are now. They send you out.
You know,
look, people want to know.
She's Black and she in Boston. You ain't getting first dibs.
Wow, you went there, Wilson. Wow. Well, no, but I'm just saying that fans of this franchise and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there is immense interest because people want to know. So, I mean, I get it. I was sure she was not on death's door because they said it was minor injuries, but I was looking for a report that she was out of the hospital, and nobody reported that she just went to the hospital. So
people don't do no follow-ups, you know. It's like, oh, really? Boom.
That's why we have Wilson Morales on the show. Wilson does follow up people.
Yeah, she was only in there for a couple hours, released about a little after 1 o'clock, and went home. So I mean, the reports are that there are going to be no effects to the filming schedule whatsoever, and things are
The
going
other
on.
day I sprained my toe, but by 2 days later I'm back to walking again.
Man, Wilson just has no empathy, man. All right. So I got one more thing before we move on to Wilson. This week earlier, as a radio guy, this was of interest to me. They announced this year's nominees for the Radio Hall of Fame. Donnie Simpson, who got in the Hall of Fame last year, tweeted out how proud he was. And this year's class is stellar. And Wilson, you can try to pretend you don't know any of these names if you want to, and I'm just going to look at you crazy. Frankie Crocker, welcome to the Hall of Fame. Frankie Crocker, if you're a New Yorker, or even if you weren't a New Yorker, nationally, Frankie Crocker, the chief rocker. I grew up listening to Frankie Crocker. Frankie Crocker was the man. And I know people and wound up working with people who work with Frankie. So congratulations to Frankie Crocker. If you live in DC, and if you've heard of the Quiet Storm, Melvin Lindsay, the originator of the Quiet Storm, is in the Hall of Fame. So congratulations to him. Don Cornelius. This is one way past time. Why is Don Cornelius now finally getting into the Radio Hall of Fame?
That's what I say. You say Frankie Crocker, you say Don Cornelius, and I'm like, really? Like, why so late?
I don't get it, man.
Somebody got woke.
Crocker?
I was going to say, how long has this Hall of Fame been in existence that they're just getting around to these people?
It can't be long, because I don't understand how Don Cornelius gets in the Hall of Fame. I mean, and again, I know
Don Simpson.
I know Donnie Simpson, right? Personally. Donnie is cool as hell, and Donnie is deserving, but it almost to me feels like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where I watched Jay-Z get in the same time as LL Cool J. And I'm like, how did the Beastie Boys and Public Enemy all get in the Hall of Fame before LL? LL is the creator. He was one of the co-founders of Def Jam. How does he not get in first ballot in the Hall of Fame? So, and then finally, I'm sorry, Petey Green, if you watch Talk to Me, that Don Cheadle played him, he's in the Hall of Fame. And Martha Jean, the Queen, I forget what her real name is. Hold on a second, I can tell you now because I had it queued up. Martha Jean is Martha Jean Steinberg. She was an influential African-American radio broadcaster, later pastor of her church. She was in Memphis, Tennessee. She started in radio in 1954. So she's inducted in this star-studded class: Chief Rocker Frankie Crocker, Melvin Lindsay, Don Cornelius, Petey Green, and Martha Jean the Queen, all in the Radio Hall of Fame. I've got to do some checking. Or Charles, if you can check, how long has this Radio Hall of Fame been in existence? Because you missed a lot of names if you didn't have.
Basically, you're giving it more credit than it should be getting. So
say it again.
You're giving it more credit than it should be getting.
Wow, Wilson. I mean, but you do have a point.
Because if it's like 5 years old, and why we're talking about this? It's like you say.
Wow.
That's like,
Wilson is a cut and dry kind of a guy.
Nah, because it's like if it's been around for a good minute, then you have to recognize like why these legendaries are now getting in. But if it's just new, I'm like, all right, y'all just new. So who's on the voting committee? When you get to 10 years, let's talk about it. Until then, it's like let them grow.
Well,
I should have checked. I'm happy to hear that we got 2 DC people in the Hall of Fame this year.
Probably why y'all wanted to mention it, because they're DC folks, huh?
No, I wanted to mention it because I worked in radio for 12 years. So radio is
I did radio as well,
Well,
you should care. I was like, really?
Watch this. You should care about this, Wilson. You should care.
I should, but I'll care when they mention my name.
Wow. Well, I mean, you keep on working on your trajectory, and we made these. Like, Wilson is in the Radio Hall of Fame. Woo!
Like, I remember him. It's like I remember because I never heard of him.
You see Charles' face. Charles is like,
Wilson Morales? That's that dude I never heard of.
That's funny. Well, Wilson, go ahead, man. So what's going on this week in entertainment?
Wait. Before Wilson, I just want to let y'all know the Radio Hall of Fame started in 1988. And it started
that's abysmal. I would like to know what their qualifications. You have to have 25 years, because most Hall of Fames, 25 years after they start inducting people. So even at 25 years, you're still late on some of these inductees. You're just late. I mean, Don Cornelius? Like, wow. He started in 1970. He should have been in the Hall of Fame if they had one in 1995. I'm just saying. So Wilson, what is going on in entertainment this week?
Anyway, as we're ending August, usually
1988
pre-COVID, you don't get the best of movies coming out, in theaters. It's just more about, this is that throwaway time period where like, okay, fall season's about to come up, legitimate contenders are starting to come up. Let's just get these out of the way. But then you have some few that hopefully will spark an audience to come out and see them in theaters. And that starts off with Candyman. Much anticipated, directed by Nia DaCosta, produced by Jordan Peele. What he can bring when he's involved in the horror genre. So hopefully, audiences will talk about it and see. We don't know. You can have your opinions, but with this movie, it's the box office that matters. Over on Hulu, you've got a Vacation Friends starring Laura Harry, Yvonne Orji, John Cena. Comedy. So you can decide if you want to stay home and check that out. On Netflix, you've got an independent film that played at festivals last year and is now making its way on Netflix called Really Love, directed by first-time filmmaker Angel Christie Williams and starring Kofi Siriboe, Yutha Wang Long Sing, Black lady.
Black lady.
It's like Latoya Norton, Mac Wiles, an assortment of black
Michael Ealy.
Michael Ealy,
yeah.
Blair Underwood.
Last performance from Suzanne Douglas.
So yeah, written by Felicia A. Price. So you have an assortment of black talent in front and behind the screen, in there. Over also on Netflix, you got a series. It's called Clickbait, which is interesting. I managed to see it, starring Adrian Grenier and Betty Gabriel, in which a guy's holding up a sign saying 5 million views, I die. And it's a matter of like a race, one of those race against time. Can they find them? Why was he kidnapped? Yada, yada, yada. So it's an interesting 8-episode mystery, and then you have, on TV, you have the second season of Apple's sci-fi series in a way called C, which is Jason Momoa, Alfred Woodard, and this year they got Dave Bautista. So there's a lot of stuff sometimes on TV that, like, if you're not in a position like us where we're pressing, we're getting access. Not everybody has Apple, BET Plus, Hulu, Disney Plus. It's like, I need money for what? For all my Plus channels. You know what I'm saying? And they're all rising. I was like, why gotta be Plus? Why can't it be, it's like, it's just too many out there. But there's like an assortment of options of what people can check out, but not much in the theater world.
And that's not counting Paramount Plus, CBS All Access, and all these other ridiculous.
But honestly, if you have Paramount Plus, why would you get CBS All Access? They're the same channel.
Folks, if you guys knew the business, you know that CBS All Access turned into Paramount Plus.
Thank you. So my point is that there's a lot of services. You hear us say it on this show all the time. People don't have the money for all these different services, nor should they. Do they have the time? Who's got the time to watch all this stuff? Watch this. We're in the business and we don't have time. So I'm trying to figure out how are you having time at home?
No.
Now, Wilson, I will say honestly, I don't know how you do it. He and I were talking a couple of days ago. I'm always in awe because there was stuff like Vacation Friends. They sent me that on Hulu. I didn't get a chance to watch that until this morning because
sometimes you don't have the time.
I had the time. I was watching other stuff. I was watching Clickbait and this screener and that screener and movies.
I've been watching shows later. I try to get deep sleep, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna sleep early. It's 1 a.m. Let me go to sleep early, and then like I wake up thinking like, oh, I got deep sleep. Rip Van Winkle type area. Like, oh, what day is it? Like, oh, it's only 4 a.m.
Pretty much.
You feel good. You're like, oh, I got a lot more hours than you look at. What? 3 hours?
All right. Well, without any further ado, I just want to jump into some of these movies. And there's one movie that okay, I'm gonna be nice because we're gonna talk about it now. we're gonna start off with the film, a romantic comedy that I thought going in halfway into this movie, I'm like, man, I'm looking at the 2021 Love Jones. I'm looking at Disappearing Acts. I'm looking at something real special. And then came the second and third, the second half of the second act and the third act. And the film I'm talking about is Really Love, right? And Really Love, as Wilson just said a couple of minutes ago, is a film that hit the festival circuit last year, got buried under all these movies that were moving around last year. It finally made its debut on Netflix, I want to say on Wednesday. And it stars Kofi Sarabo. And Wilson told you the name of the woman because it's like 4 names. Yes. And it tells a story, much like the 2 films that I referenced, about a man on the come up, a young woman who also comes from a really old money family. She's a law student. And it's a look at gentrified DC. So I really was anxious to see this movie. And I'll start first, man. I thought going in, as I said in my tease, that the first half of the film, the way they connect at an art show, they get together, their romance. The romance moves a little quick, but again, of course, it's a 2-hour movie or hour and 35-minute movie. And suddenly they're living together. So Charles has that face. They're living together. And then he's a painter who is getting a lot of grief from his family because his family wants him to go out and get a job and can't see how this painting is going to benefit him. He can't sustain a family painting, as his father gives him grief halfway through the film. And suddenly he has a colleague played by Michael Ealy. I forget what his name is in the film, but Ealy is telling them to, once he separates his workspace from his living space, he'll become a better painter. And suddenly he gets the eye of an art agent played by Uzu Aduba. And the next thing you know, he's off and running. But he has this romance with this woman. And I don't want to call it a fail because it's not a fail, but I was just really, really upset because I thought that this movie is good, but it had a chance to be great. And what the greatness in this film, to me, because I wound up having a long conversation with my significant other deep into the night after we watched it, is that a couple of things jumped out at me immediately, right? The film is produced by Charles King, who was one of the 3 producers on Judas and the Black Messiah, and is also produced by Stephanie Elaine, who did films like Beyond the Lights, Love and Basketball, and some other stuff that she's produced, right? So the producing team, I know going in that the script of this film was tight. The actors signed on, the producers signed on. I think that the fail of this movie is in the editing, because we always talk about where sometimes a movie gets lost in the edit. And the fact that here's a story of a couple, and there's these misgivings that happen in the second act that are from more or less the woman. The fact that we had a woman writer and a woman director and they didn't flesh out the female lead, I thought was criminal in this movie. I thought that aspect is a major fail because they really flesh out the male character, the male lead. The female lead is kind of left sketchy. She loves the law. We see at the beginning, but then at the end, we don't ever see her back in practicing law. Yet the family is snobbish about this guy who has become a success. I just thought that the pieces did not all together click. And I'm only really caring about it this much because it starts off really, really strong. And this movie had the potential of being something that we talk about a Love Jones. We talk about a Disappearing Act. We talk about Brown Sugar. Even a film like Sylvie's Love, I always talk about execution. If you can't execute and get me from act 1 to act 3 and have it all tie together and have me feel some sort of way, you have lost me as a critic. So I'm sure it's just me because I read Charles' review. Charles loved this movie. The person I haven't talked to, I'm going to start with him first. Wilson Morales, what did you think about Really Love?
You know, the thing about watching a romantic film, black, white, or whatever, is that, you know, it's the same story. Boy meets girl, vice versa. They get together somewhere in the middle of the movie towards the end. There's a reason why they break up or separate. And in the end, they find a way together. It's the same old formula. Now it's a question of the execution. And they have to make it for the audience to root for these couples to get together, which is why you have a Love Jones, you know, why you have a Love and Basketball. And those movies are 20 years old, it's still revered.
Right.
And not to say that there hasn't been others that can't compete. There have been, it's just never been at that same level in a way. You look at Really Love, and it's like, I think, you know, they got together too quick in a way. You know, it's sort of like, where's the challenge? Saying, where's the, you know, like, eyes locked in. Next thing you know, they're living together. Like, where's the challenge?
Hey, Wilson,
You know?
how do you know when the painting is done? How do you know you can love? And then
You
we're
know-
together. I was like, that's it. I said, man. Go ahead, Wilson.
So, and then, you know, you have secondary characters that just, they're props, you know, it just can't be a one-on-one type of film. And then, you know, the third act, you know, no matter how you start off, you can start off clumsy and then boom, it gets better, you know? Sometimes if you start off too high, that's more of a bigger challenge because now you got to keep that stance like all the way through. If you start off like so-so to begin in, but then you find your way to step it up. And there've been plenty of films that have been like that, where like, oh, the ending is the deal maker, to the point where like, you know, I really like that. I want to see come back at the end, you know? It's like, I wasn't a fan of the end, you know, I'm not trying to spoil it for anybody. People look at films differently. And so like, you know, I'd give it like a B minus, because I think it could have been worked a little bit better, you know? And granted, it's a first-time filmmaker. Felicia Pride is a writer. She's been writing for different areas. Film is different, you know? Film, it's like you're not writing a series where you have a whole team working with you. You're the director of hire. You know, it's your film. You co-wrote it with Felicia, you know? And granted, you have Macro, you've got Homegrown, you've got the right team behind you to help guide you into that way. But it's not always easy, you know? Sometimes, you know, when it comes to Black romantic films, you know, we're looking for the Messiah. You know, it's like, it's like biopics. You can only get it right the first time. You know, it's like, you know, now you can get it now, just to translate a little bit different. It's like, look at the Aretha. You can get it right on film, get it, you know, or TV. You can do film and TV. So you can do it twice. But if you're not going to get two Aretha movies down the road. No. You know what I'm saying? You're never going to get two Aretha movies. You know, no one's going to make an Aretha movie in the next 10 years. You know, this is it. So with Really Love, you know, time will tell. Sometimes, you know, you look back and with Love Jones and Love and Basketball, it didn't get the cult classic, cult status till years later. So a lot more people got to see it. A lot more people got to buzz about it. A lot more people got to compare it to films that they've seen before. So the jury's out on Really Love. We may see it now and say, oh, and then you never know, in second viewing, you may find something you may have missed the first time, and you look to see what the people say. You know, sometimes the audience can say something different. So that's my 2 cents.
Charles Kirkland.
Okay, first of all, I'll just say that I obviously like the film better than Tim Gordon, but I think I'm more on the same side as Wilson Morales. There were a lot of clumsy things in here, but I think the problem is Tim Gordon is looking at this movie from a classic love story angle, and that you want and you want the ideal romance. This movie is not that kind of movie, and you already hit on the fact that these two fell in love super quick, and I believe that this is more of picture of modern day nowadays type of romance, not the kind that you pine for. Remember, Sylvie Love is a period piece. Love Jones is from 40 years ago almost. So you're looking at films that this is now type of film. This is what people nowadays are going through. They've fallen in love quick. They're going through these problems, and they really find out that what is their relationship based upon. And so I thought that this was an accurate depiction of what is happening in relationships nowadays. It's not beautiful, it's not perfect, but it is what it is. And that's what, and I really enjoyed seeing that kind of love story being portrayed in a film now. I thought the cinematography was great. The way that they captured the essence of these two characters. And yes, the female character isn't fleshed out as well as it should be, but it is enough for the purpose of this film. There were a couple editing gaffes that I couldn't get past. But other than that, I thought it was a solid movie. I gave it a B. Probably I might have given it a B minus if I thought about it a little bit more. But I thought it was really decent and worth checking out if you're prepared to not see the classical love story that you expect to see.
Well, I give it a B minus as well. I just thought it started off, and you're right. I would agree and echo all those points that they didn't present too much of a challenge. Like I think about, what Darius Love Hall and Nia Mosley went through. He had to meet her at the record store and steal her address off a check and roll up. I mean, he did some stuff. You think about in Love and Basketball, they grew up next to each other and played, didn't see each other in that way. It took them a minute. So you're right. I think part of the challenge in these stories is, as Wilson said earlier, it's boy meet girl, girl and boy have conflict, then boy and girl find their way back to each other. You can't do step one too quick, because if you do step one too quick, that's like the audience is like, okay, that's it. That's what I was saying at home. That's it. So so Really Love is on Netflix right now. You be the judge. You make your decision. You heard what we had to say. Up next is a film that's, again, another pandemic film that's a year and that's been pushed back and finally is in theaters this weekend. It's Candyman from Nia DaCosta, sort of a continuation or a next generation of the 1992 original Candyman that starred Tony Todd. Excuse me?
That's 2 times.
Oh, you funny. This film, this continuation of that story, produced by Jordan Peele, directed by Nia DaCosta, starring, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. Am I getting that correctly?
That's correct.
As well as Tiana Paris, who seems to be everywhere, man. I'm like, does this sister ever take a break? I'm not mad at her. I mean, she is working. She has a good agent. It also stars who I think is having a great 2021, Coleman Domingo. My God, from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom to Zola to now this, one strong performance after another, and very different performances for Domingo, who's really good in this movie. And the thing, and I'll start now. I think the thing that I liked about this movie is going in, I am not the horror guy. If you watch this show long enough, or if you know me, these are not my preferred films, but I had to watch Candyman. I mean, this is kind of a different one. Is that 3 times now? So in this film, which I really love, they sort of give you, we meet a man who could potentially be Candyman, but we find out through the origin that he's not. And now the story is in modern day 2019 Chicago. Cabrini Green, which was the locale of the original, is now gone. This area of Chicago has been gentrified. We have a new group of people living in there. I'm not going to say it. You know who a new group is. And the legend is reborn again. What are you saying?
Don't say it again.
Can I finish this review,
Go ahead.
Mr. Candyman? Because you got to say it 5 times in a row. You don't say it. You don't just say it just to say it. But anyway, you got a new group of people moving in here, and the legend is reborn. Yahya plays an artist in Chicago who happens to see something, and I think he grabs that hashtag. what is it? What's the hashtag? Say what did they use in the film?
Say my name.
Say my name. Thank you. So, and he creates a show around it, and of course, people there are people who believe in a legend, and there are people who not. And let's just say that the people who believe make it to the end of the film. The people who don't believe, yeah. But I thought that this film, as executed, is really, really strong, right? The fact that somebody wrote, I read a review this morning where they talked about this violent, gory Candyman, and I went, really? Because maybe into the third act, the film to me didn't come across as being super violent. I've seen more violence in Marvel movies than what I saw in Candyman. So I thought that the way that Nia DaCosta with the sets and some of the cinematography and some of the art designs and some of the things that they did, I thought this movie was really, really good. And I went back and actually watched it again after it ended the first time. I like this film a lot. I would give this film a B+. I think it improves upon the original. And I think that the vision in the film is very, very strong. And I think it's going to be the sort of film that will have more appeal than just people who love horror films. I think it's the kind of film that people will just take on and like because of the social subject matter that is included in it and the names that are associated. Nia DaCosta, good job, sister. You rocked Candyman. Charles, I'll start with you, man. What did you think about Candyman?
Well, unfortunately, I was not able to watch Candyman, haven't seen it, but I know this much. My niece, my favorite niece in the world, is going off to college in Tampa University. And I gave her some words of wisdom. I said, when you get down there, because she's not going to an HBCU, I said, a couple things you got to know. First of all, you don't play with Ouija boards, and you don't say Candyman 5 times in the mirror. And I left it at that because I believe in the curse, so I'm not going to say anymore.
That was 1 minute we can't get back. All you had to do is.
Wilson Morales, what did you think, man? Since you
wow, I was like, yada. I didn't see it next.
Are you sure you want to go now?
Yes,
you ready?
Here's the thing. Unlike Tim, I watched this movie and I tried not to go into thinking like, it's a sequel. Candyman's a cult classic, 1992. It's like, don't go in there looking for something that's going to be great. It's a whole new cast, and we're overhyping it a little bit because Jordan Peele's got this mystique when he does the horror genre. So I think without Jordan Peele's name, it just would have been a film directed by Nia DaCosta, and who knows how much fanfare it would have gotten. Nevertheless, you get it, and you got new actors on there. Actors we're seeing. And then I'm watching execution, and I'm thinking like, if this is played in today's time, the setting and the storyline, there were moments in there where I was like, what's going on here? Like, as if everybody's oblivious to what's going on with Yaya's character. It's like at some point, like, dude, you don't go to the hospital and start freaking out like you're starting to turn into a lizard. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're all letting that go. And as much as I like Coleman Domingo, unless there was some parts that was left in the cutting room floor, I think there was not enough development in his character for what transpires towards the end. I'm like, where'd that come from? So I think Nia does a good job in the direction, the production design. I think they could have done a little bit more work in the writing of the story. It's only 90 minutes, so you have to wonder like what was left off. So at the end of the day, it's like maybe a second viewer made me think differently, but on first viewing, I wouldn't say I was a fan. At the end of the day, it's like, there's certain elements that were missing that weren't unexplained that would become what's the word, nonsensical.
Wow. And that's legitimate. That's why I'm always checking in on other folks' reviews. But I love the ending of it. I jumped out the bed. I was watching in the bed. I jumped out the bed. I said, that's how you end a movie. I'm not gonna give you the line because I don't want to spoil it for people. But Wilson, you know what that look is, right? When he looks into the
That
camera.
looks that's me looking at you like, what is he talking about?
Man, I like the end of that movie, man. I'm not the horror guy, man. So I like my movies that have a little more substance to them. And granted, I hear you, Wilson, because you're right. The original is a cult classic. I just thought that Nia DaCosta and team did a really good job of updating the story, building on what was already there. So you have to have some semblance of what the original was in order to watch this movie. If you go in there cold and you've never heard of the original, how do you attach? How do you understand what I'm saying, Wilson? How do you attach, or where is the connective tissue in order to helping you to really understand the story if you don't see the first one, or to understand the legend if you've never seen the first one?
I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah, you definitely have to see the first one in order to get who these characters are. Because if you walk in there cold, you're like, okay, don't know.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is, if you haven't seen the first one, don't go see the second one.
Well, I would say
not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I'm not saying not necessarily. I'm saying it helps you with the legend of the character, right? To understand what they're doing, because I haven't seen the original in a minute, but I'm trying to remember about the origin story, right? Because I think they do a good job of really kind of re-emphasizing the origins of what was introduced in the original back in '92. And if they were really been thinking, they should have waited till next year and put this out. And it would have been like the 30th anniversary of Candyman. I think that would have been a better marketing tool than putting it out in 20 or 21. So that's just me. All right, so up next is a movie that I did not see, but I'm sure Wilson saw it and maybe Charles did as well. And of course, that is Flag Day. Flag Day, I'm assuming, stars Sean Penn. Am I correct? Who wants to take the intro? Because I haven't seen this film, and I don't want to just read the description. I want somebody who's seen it to kind of go into what this movie is and what it's about.
Okay, it's directed by Sean Penn, starring and introducing his daughter Dylan Penn, as well as Sean Penn in a supporting runaway. And basically, the story is told in flashbacks of how much of a reckless man Sean Penn's character is, and doesn't know how to hold down a job, hold down a family. And what you're getting is flashback from his daughter's perspective, because apparently, something had happened to him, and you're getting to see, what his daughter's relationship was with him. And, you're watching her. She had a struggle all her life, being, with her dad, who, like I said before, reckless. And then at some point she's on her own. And then, you're watching him trying to be on a straight and narrow. We've seen these movies before where you have that one individual where it's trying to get off a drug habit or an alcohol habit, but, it's hard to do so. And the movie's more of a vehicle for her, introducing her. I think she does a good job. Obviously, there'll be a lot of nepotism because, he gave her a starring role, which a lot of people probably wouldn't have.
Right.
But, she does okay. It's enough for producers to say, let me see what else you can do. Because you probably being treated with kid gloves with your dad as the director. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so let me see what else you can do. And so for some people, they've been mixed about it only for the reasons that I mentioned just now. And I'm not a casting director. I'm not an acting coach to see what's wrong with her. I think the story is fine. I think it had been somebody else, it probably would have a different take because it wouldn't have been Sean Penn as the director and the actor. But you could see the chemistry there, obviously, as father and daughter. And, it's played in theaters now. And, I don't know how far it's going to go. MGM's going all out, but I don't know. That's I'd probably give it a solid, I'd give it a solid B-.
Wow. Okay. You real good on those B's today, man. You're giving out a lot of killer B's.
As I say, it takes a lot for me to be for an A. For any movie to be an A, all cylinders got to be working. It's got to make me want to say, I'm going to go see this again. and again. You know.
Okay, and Charles, did you get a chance to see Flag Day?
Yes, and unfortunately, I tapped out. I tapped out on this one. I started watching it, and I was just like, I got other things I could do with my life, and I obviously saw that it was a vehicle for Sean Penn's daughter. He's trying to bring her into the acting world, and I didn't think he did a good job. The story was kind of sketchy and not interesting at all to me. So yeah, I topped out halfway through. If I rate what I saw, it would at best be a C. But this really wasn't worth I had too much else to do. There was no way I was going to finish it.
So it sounds like Flag Day is in theaters. Is it on any streaming services that you guys know of? Is this just
in theaters?
In theaters.
Just in theaters. All right. Well, Flag Day is out there. Wow, those are not two ringing endorsements. I'll tell you that much. Like one person, I tapped out. Wilson's like, this is a vehicle. Sean Penn. Is Penn's, is his direction effective at least?
Here's another thing. There is a cameo by an Oscar winner, a Black Oscar winner, that when I say cameo, that person's not even credited. Like that person must have been like, take my name out.
So, okay, and I know who you're talking about. How's the connection of Sean Penn and his actor, his Oscar winner, able to get him? Is the role something that's like delicious?
I got some money. I need a color person in the movie. You know, we're all getting woke. Can you do me that solid?
Wow. All right. Flag Day is in theaters. Go check out and find out who this Oscar winner is. Because I know who it is. I'm like, how'd that happen?
Yeah. When I first saw that person, I was like, how did I miss this? Then I watched the credits. I was like, oh wow, they not even in
uncredited.
There. Uncredited. Like, ooh.
Wow.
The person made 2 appearances.
Wow. Well, last but not least, man, is the film that we started talking about today, and of course, that was Vacation Friends. An uptight man is booked a resort stay, a vacation for him and his soon-to-be hopefully fiance. He arrives on the way. He makes sure everything is in order. And when he gets there, for this experience to remember, as they open the door to the suite, all the rose petals and all of the sexiness has been washed out because the couple above flooded their jacuzzi. He wanted to have, I forget the artist, was it Bill Withers, Deep Cuts?
Yeah.
Playing in the background. So he opens the door, there's a washed out room of rose petals, Bill Withers playing Lovely Day. And the next thing you know, they find out that this very annoying couple has this amazingly wonderful suite upstairs. The two of them move into the suite and hilarity ensues, or so you would think. I didn't get a chance to finish this movie because, again, I had so much stuff to watch earlier this week that I started watching it this morning that didn't finish. So I will see to the people who are watching it, but reading Charles's review this morning, I can see exactly where he's going. A lot of this stuff isn't going to make any sense. A lot of this stuff is stuff we've seen over and over and over in so many films. Even in the brief amount of what I've watched, I've seen this scenario hundreds of times in films that they've tried to have the two couple system. One's the fish out of water. The other one is off the hook 180 degrees in the opposite direction. So that's what you get with Vacation Friends. It's playing on Hulu. Charles Kirkland, who did I thought it with you first last time. Wilson, what did you think about Vacation Friends, man?
A quick throwaway, watch it. What's next? You know, it's on Hulu, good thing. You know, I was like, this must have been like, we got a movie, it's a pandemic, but you can be on a resort island and you're getting a check, you know. Hey, who's gonna say no to that? You know, like, you know, you're cooped up in the house, you know, Lil Rel, the starring role. You know,
Adam Sandler has made a career out of doing this, man. Adam Sandler will book these movies where it's always in some exotic location. He calls up Chris Rock and the rest of his SNL friends, and they go make these horrible movies and cash these checks and they're on vacation. So it feels like that's what you just said.
We're talking years later. Adam Sandler is now out of their price range. Chris Rock is out of their price range. You're like, who the new guy? John Lennon, Johnson, he always looking to do comedy. He ain't just trying to show his buffness and fighting all the time or whatever. I got some, what's the word I'm saying? What's the comedy word I'm looking for? I got some comedic chops and so forth. The other chick that's paired with him, don't know her. I've never seen her elsewhere. She was just like, all right, somebody else must have turned it down. Yvonne Orji is like, hey, she probably was like, night school did me dirty. I got a better shot.
So wait a minute, Wilson. Is this before or after? Did Cena make this movie before Suicide Squad or after?
He must have done this. Okay, Suicide Squad. I got the costume on. This one, all I have to do is wear shorts and a tank top. Boom, I'm in. No more hot clothes in Mexico. I'm like,
I ain't gotta wear a toilet bowl on my face.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm losing weight just doing this.
Wow.
But it's a funny thing. The only thing you can get out of it is how many times you've gone somewhere and you meet people for that time period, whether you're on vacation, whether you go to a reunion and you ain't got no boys and you hang with somebody, you need a road dog somewhere, I'm like, are we cool for these 2 days? After that, you go your way, I go my way. But they start calling you, yo, what's up, man? I'm in town. I'm like, man, I want to see you now. I was like, man, it's like, so some of it's like when you're watching at home, not bad. If you was in a theater, you're like, wow.
Online, like this, man.
You're like, wow,
how much more of this I got, man?
I should have gone to the matinee.
Charles Kirkland, man, what are you thinking about Vacation Friends?
I don't know. It must be the phase of the moon or something that's going on because this movie was dumb, stupid. Can you imagine Nicolas Cage and Will Smith doing this film? Because those were the people who were slated to be in these roles when it was first brought out in 2000. Will Smith and Nicolas Cage were supposed to do this.
And it ended up being John Cena and Lil Rel Howery?
Yeah.
Man, that is like the purgatory step down.
You know what would have been a good casting? Jim Carrey. Like you needed like a real comedian that's gonna make it pop. Like you need if you're gonna go all out and be hilarious, you need somebody like a Jim Carrey who can be zany in all areas. Back in his heyday.
And who would you cast opposite him? Kevin Hart?
Nah, you know what? Kevin Hart wouldn't have been so bad, but it's like because Kevin Hart could play that serious charm like Lil Rel Howery is, or Will Smith, but more like Kevin Hart in a way.
I
couldn't see Will Smith doing this.
No.
I think Lil Rel is actually pretty decent in the role that he has. I mean, who you gonna get better than him for this kind of role? I mean, you can say Kevin Hart, but Kevin Hart wants real money. Kevin Hart's like, yeah, okay.
Look, you'd asked Kevin Hart 5 years ago.
Yeah. Probably like, yo, this don't even pay for my parking my car.
Yeah. Wow. So I guess I've heard enough. Is this something we would recommend to people, or is
if you're home and it's raining, you're like, what else is on TV? Oh, yeah, we'll go check it out.
If you've run out of antidepressant medicine and you really need a pick-me-up or something that you just got to be crazy to do.
When they say check your brain at the door, and you've seen enough Law and Orders and CSIs, you're like, all right, what else is on?
Well, I mean, quick, we got about 4 minutes, man. And I know we didn't have clickbait as something we wanted to talk about, but I did want to spotlight Betty Gabriel. DC girl, I met her. Wilson, you met her at the Critics' Choice Awards the year Get Out. Nice woman, man. The thing, her and Jonathan Majors to me have what I call these classic Hollywood looks. Like Betty Gabriel is 40 years old, but she has the look of like a starlet from like the golden age of Hollywood. Like if you dressed her up in a gown, and like when I saw her at the Critics' Choice, I was like, she has a very classic look and doesn't work a lot. And the fact, I thought she was really, really strong in Clickbait. This story of this interracial couple who, as Wilson said at the top.
I have 1 second. There is actually a knock on my door. I am going to be away for 30 seconds.
Oh, go ahead, man. So I'm just setting this thing up. So there's an interracial couple and they're married some years earlier and they have a family. And one day he leaves for work and we find out that he has been kidnapped and he's holding a sign on social media that at 5 million clicks, I die. And then this series starts to unspool kind of like The Wire in different aspects. You know, we first think about the sister. So there's an episode where they concentrate on the sister. The next episode is the wife. The next episode is the mistress. The next episode is the press, and on and on and on as we get to the mystery of who this man really was. And you know, it's interesting because in the wife episode, I think episode 3, we find out that she had an affair with another guy, only to
don't tell the whole story.
Well, I'm not telling the whole story, but only to figure out that the husband ends up being far worse, far worse than the wife ever was as the story unspools. But Betty Gabriel, it was really, I watched it specifically for her because I don't think we see enough of her. And I haven't seen her. Has she been in anything else that has been of note since Get Out? Anything? I guess the answer would be no.
No.
Right, the answer would be no. So the fact that she gets 8 episodes of this thing, and I think she's the best thing in it, I would recommend. Now, I absolutely hate the title. I think the title Clickbait is just stupid. It's a stupid title. You could have come up with something else other than that. But her work in it is really, really good, and I like the series. And as Wilson says, I think it's better than Vacation Friends. I tell you that much. It's better than that, and it sounds like it's better than Flag Day. So
if you're gonna watch anything over the weekend, it's gonna definitely interest you. Definitely watch Clickbait from episode to episode. You know, you're gonna watch it. I wish it was a weekly series because then you can talk about it. Like, It could be this person. Oh, what could happen there? Sometimes when you have all these episodes all at once, granted, it's not easy just to try to do 8 hours all at once. You know. You got to spread it out so that way, you know, like you mentioned, certain episodes can stand on its own and you start having that talk. Otherwise, nobody's going to remember episode 4 or 5. They don't, because, you know, Netflix just not randomly, just puts them on right after the other. But it's definitely worth seeing.
Hey, Charles, if you had a chance,
that's one of the advantages. I'm sorry. I think that's one of the advantages that Disney has latched on when they do their series. They give people time to marinate over the stories. And you got What If that's doing their thing every week. The Winter Soldier, WandaVision, all that stuff. They just gave you the time to actually process the information instead of just zooming through the whole thing in one quick bite. But I'm happy for Sophie Brewer, another DC girl. We talked a lot about DC. We talked about DC at the beginning.
Betty Gabriel, who plays.
What did I say? Betty Gabriel. Betty Gabriel.
She plays Sophie. Just dropping names out of nowhere.
Yeah, no. He's talking about her character, not the woman.
Character is Sophie Brewer, so that's where I got confused. But anyway, Really Love is in DC. This is in she's from DC, so we repping DC hard today. I'm appreciative.
And we're gonna wrap up right here. But before I go, I just want to thank the countless people, man, from my communities, whether it's my film community, my faith community, my work community, you know, high school, wherever, that this is outpouring of love for my birthday this weekend, people who acknowledge me. So thank you to all these folks. Charles Kirkland, who literally does a show with me, was the only person who did not call me on my birthday that's on this show.
I did call you. You didn't answer the phone.
Well, I took Wilson's call because, you know, I like Wilson more than you. But outside of that, man, that was a joke, by the way. Thank you to everybody who wished me a happy birthday. And since my birthday was on a Wednesday, which sucked, I am going to start celebrating my birthday now through the rest of the weekend. So I'm out. itches. Everybody, you guys take care. Enjoy. We guys will see you on the other side. Wilson, Charles, thank you guys every week. And that's a wrap for episode 469. Next week, please tune in. We're going to have a fall movie preview show. So we'll kind of let you know what's coming up the next several months. You guys take care, man. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.
Bye.